What are the most iconic Woman Love Woman films out there? The ones that have entered into the zeitgeist of Woman Love Woman representation, the ones that you can point to and say, yes, these films are a must-watch. While I by no means am an authority, I'm making a sort of starter pack of films and television that I think are the quintessential Woman Love Woman content that anyone wanting to get an education in Sapphic film and television should check out. There's a lot to get through, so I will be posting this in multiple parts, so be sure to be subscribed for future installments. Naturally, this means that some, but not all of the content I'll be covering has been mentioned on other lists that I've made. Okay, let's start with comedy films. Starting with rom-coms, we have a small but beloved collection of films that range from the pretty generic genre film to something a little bit more nuanced. So let's start with the good old Imagine Me and You. This is probably the most mainstream rom-com genre film out there, with characters and plot that immediately feel familiar because it's following that generic blueprint we expect. It's a film you probably feel like you've seen 100 times before. You get everything from the meet cute through to the climactic public declaration, except this time it's also gay, which makes it so much better. And given how few we have of these, it earns a spot on the Woman Love Woman must-watch list. Also a film I've mentioned before and a more indie outing, Saving Face has also become an iconic rom-com film for the Woman Love Woman community. At its core, it's a coming-out story for protagonist Will, who is struggling to assume her sexuality, coming from a more conservative Chinese immigrant family, and the tension it ultimately causes in her romance with Vivian. Its central conflict is relatable for how it deals with the tension of living truthfully or living a lie, and gives us some likable characters in a solid script. Like Imagine Me and You, it offers the satisfaction of the feel-good rom-com formula. I Can't Think Straight follows Layla and Tala, who meet as Tala is about to get married for the 4th time. Feelings begin to brew between them that culminate when they end up on a shopping weekend for the wedding. But Tala is not ready to face what this actually means for her, as she comes from a conservative family, even if Layla is ready to step into her own truth. Breaking it off, Tala tries to forget about what happened, but, well, it's not that easy. While the script could have, in my opinion, done with a bit more refinement, it's a beloved classic film that I know a lot of people love. It's only been a few months, and already the film Crush is, in my mind, a total classic. It's the teen rom-com that we deserve, based in a world where there be a lot of gay women, homophobia doesn't exist, and it's all about realizing that the girl you've been crushing on since forever maybe isn't the one for you. No, instead, it's the twin sister, who you've been forced to get tutored by, and it turns out that she's a pretty amazing person. There is no great big bad. It's sweet, funny, and wonderfully acted. It's the kind of film that I think is important for young queer people to have growing up, just like our straight counterparts have. Is this a rom-com, or is it a drama? Well, I'm putting it here. Back before Laurel Holman took on the role as Tina in The L Word, she made a foray into queer cinema history with the incredible adventure of Two Girls in Love. Here she plays the baby butch Randy, living with her gay aunt and girlfriend and working at the gas station after school. One day she gets talking with Evie while at work, and it leads to them developing a friendship that slides into something more. Along with it comes all the trials that figuring out who they are is, and how to be together while living in a community that isn't necessarily that accepting. It's a sweet indie film that speaks to where the queer narrative was back in the 90s, and it's an important queer film to see. This delightful and well-made film follows Ricky, a trans bisexual woman who is living in a small town. She is set on going to fashion school, but as she waits to hear back about her application for study, she hangs out with her best friend Robbie and works as a barista at a cafe. When Francesca walks in, a relationship blossoms. This film makes the list for 2 reasons. It's a delightful film, which alone earns it a spot, but it's also an incredibly rare film that features a trans protagonist. So I say, go watch it. But I'm a Cheerleader is a campy satire which is beloved in the queer community. It follows Megan, who is carted off to conversion camp when her conservative family stages an intervention because she doesn't enjoy kissing her all-American boyfriend and prefers to stare at her fellow cheerleaders instead. Realizing that she is a homosexual, she throws herself into becoming straight, but she doesn't count on falling in love with her fellow campmate Graham. While the story is sweet and pretty tame, at the time it came out, the movie was seen as too unabashedly queer, and it was panned for its garish colour scheme, which was all part of the narrative around sexuality and gender constructs forced on us by society. It's since built a niche fan base amongst the LGBTQ, and it really is a must-see. Speaking of campy, D.E.B.S is a spy comedy romp where a sorority of spies in training get embroiled with the known supervillain Lucy Diamond. Amy, one of the spies in training, has always been intrigued by Lucy, is doing a thesis on her, and so when she comes face to face with her, instead of apprehending her, they chit-chat and Lucy gets away. Lucy is now also intrigued and decides she wants to help Amy write this thesis, but really what she wants is a date. And well, they get closer. This movie, with its over-the-top green screen CGI and simplistic script, was a flop when it first came out, but has since burrowed its way into the Woman Love Woman zeitgeist for exactly that reason. It's a silly film that does what it's meant to do, entertain us while serving us with a good dollop of gay. Films I wouldn't call rom-coms per se, but they are comedies that have lesbian love in them. Based on historical accounts, the star-studded dark comedy is quite unlike any other on the list. Abigail and Sarah are cousins, who are manoeuvring within the court politics and vying to be the invalid Queen Anne's favourite. And while Sarah seems to have a genuine, if exacting, love for Queen Anne, Abigail is doing it for selfish reasons, and she's not above using false flattery and seduction to reach her goal. It's a complex story with many layers that centres this kind of love triangle between three fascinating historical women, and while it isn't a fairy tale romance by any means, it really is a must-see. Booksmart is a coming-of-age buddy rom-com where Amy and Molly are determined to finish out high school by doing all the shenanigans they never got up to because they were too busy studying. They decide to party. Amy is also gay, and she decides to do something about that, to mixed results. This is a really good movie with excellent cast and a smart script, a rare gem of a gay movie. Moving on to musicals, and quite honestly, I don't know a lot of musicals with lesbian stories centered at the heart, but this is what I've got for you. The Prom is a screen adaptation of the stage musical where Broadway stars, off the back of a play that flopped, decide to take up a cause. When they hear about how Emma's prom has been cancelled by the PTA because she wants to bring a girl as her date, they set out to help her with plenty of razzle-dazzle. It's a fun film and it's a star-studded cast. It does run a bit long in my opinion, but the finale number did get me all emotional, and it's really the only lesbian-centered musical film that I know of. Because while Rent precedes The Prom with lesbians in it, they are not the protagonist of that story. What it does have is Idina Menzel, the star of the very subtexty musical Wicked, as a bisexual Maureen who has a girlfriend. It doesn't get a whole heap of screen time, but it's there, and given how anemic this portion of my list is, it makes the cut. If you're into musicals, this popular musical is well worth a watch. That's it for my list of essential Woman Love Woman comedies for the Saphics looking to get an education. I'll be doing a part 2 for the more dramatic movies, so if you're interested in seeing that list, click subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Until next time, lady lovers.